I wanted to share a nerd out I recently had related to a video I watched here on YouTube about something called integrated amplifiers. Now, there is a larger premise here, so stick with me. As far as this though, the details aren't super important, but just for the sake of completeness, integrated units mash a DAC and audio amplifier into a single unit. They're like the more popular cousins to the AV receiver, only in theory built with higher quality parts for better audio performance. Anyway, I'm in the market for one, and when researching brands, came across our video. In it, they play songs using several amps through the same speakers. Now, before you ask, the amps were warmed up. Good grief. Now, some of you may be rolling your eyes to that. I suspect others will be slowly nodding along and saying, yes, warmed up amps. Anyway, they play a track, they comment. And I found myself clicking that old timeline to skip between the sections for the amps I thought sounded best. Our video commenters would say things like the Yamaha sounds warm but not very fast, the Premier bright and detailed. And I basically nod my head and say, yeah, I hear that too. But something was nagging me. See, it turns out they made recordings of the sessions available as lossless FLAC files, so I grabbed them and converted them to another lossless format for Logic Pro called WAV. Now, the tracks were all a bit jumbled when I imported them, so the first thing I did was align everything. You've probably seen those digital zoom-ins where you get down to the individual pixel. Well, in Logic, we can zoom into the individual sample. Long story short, I aligned each song to be off by no more than 1 or 2 parts in 44,000, the sample rate of the recordings. Now, of course, I did need to confirm that the source tracks were actually different, so I added an EQ to each track and set them up like so. I started playback and took a screenshot, then imported that screenshot into Pixelmator Pro. I copied the image 4 times, then used a layering mode called Difference. Now, as you can see, the image turns black where the pixels are the same, that is like our UI elements, and remains in color where not, aka our EQ. Now, as we can see, the waveforms are in fact different. In fact, they even showed some of the characteristics being described in the video. The amp was boosting the lower end more, so maybe it was warmer, or it was higher on treble, so it was more forward. So once again, so far so good. Anyway, back in Logic Pro, I muted all tracks, started playback, and selectively unmuted one track at a time. I told you, this was a nerd out. Of course, this method was loads faster than skipping around a YouTube playhead. Now, after playing around some, I was relieved to see the general impressions I had of each amp remained. In fact, the amp I was considering buying after all this still sounded the best to me, making me feel better about my potential purchase. But to be really sure, we had one more test. Surely, I thought, we can split tracks up like we can in video editing software and oh, yep, Apple T. So with my aligned tracks, I made loads of cuts, then deleted all but one of those cuts for each given time slice. The result was a seamless instant cut between tracks. So I sat back, closed my eyes, and hit play. Can you guess what happened? The differences I've been hearing this entire time vanished. Literally, at no point was I ever able to distinguish when a swap happened, and at no point did I ever notice a difference in the sound of the amps being played. It's certainly not the differences I thought I had been hearing. Here's the real kicker. When I opened my eyes and saw which track was being played, that is, which amp was being played again, I heard the differences again. To let you guys experience the same, I've created a web page that randomly picks a track and plays it for a set time. Basically the test I was running. Links to source and the site are in the description. So, can you hear a difference? Look, this is a much bigger topic that we'll explore in future videos, but for now, if you're considering spending, well, basically anything over a few $100s on amplification, part of me wants to say, well, at least try this test first. Now, all that said, there are also additional caveats that again we'll cover in a follow-up video. So things like the recording quality, speaker impedance, sensitivity, room size, your hearing. But for now, I would love it if you could try the test and let me know if you hear a difference in the comments. This was a really eye-opening experience for me, and I suspect it will be for you too.